Today, I'm joined by University of Hawaii President David Lassner here on Talk Story with House Majority. Welcome, David.
Aloha, thank you for having me here today.
So we're going to jump into the hot topics right away. Just rip the Band-Aid off. Mauna Kea. This week, Speaker made a few points in his opening day or post-opening day remarks about Mauna Kea. At the very end, he announced plans for a resolution to begin a new process for finding a new governance structure for the mountain. You folks put out a press release, but I just wanted to ask you here, what is your position and what is your feeling for the university with respect to this resolution that will be going through the House?
So actually, we agree that there needs to be an improved governance structure. In fact, our Board of Regents in 2019 passed a resolution asking us to take a look at possible new governance models, and we presented those to the Board of Regents in public, duly noticed meeting last year, and we identified 4 possible models, some of which did not involve UH and some of which did. We have come to the conclusion that we think it would be very difficult to move to a different model for lots of reasons. And, we'll happily talk about that with the speaker. It's probably a little too in-depth for today, but we are pursuing a new master lease and taking all of the steps necessary. It's a multi-year process. And if something else comes up that the state of Hawaii decides on a different approach, the University of Hawaii will obviously cooperate. But we think there are a lot of pitfalls. And I think, in our opinion, once the working group really digs into what it would take, they're going to encounter some of the same issues we encountered.
So really what's going to be happening then are basically parallel tracks are going to be happening. So just to get some basic information out there, in 2019, the Board of Regents adopted new administrative rules, and those were signed by the governor in January of 2020.
Correct.
And that's what we're kind of at right now. And in all of the things that have happened, there is still the process of decommissioning. Is it 2 telescopes, and UH will continue to do that work even as we go through this process?
I mean, actually, let me acknowledge the speaker did critique University of Hawaii stewardship of Mauna Kea, and we have freely acknowledged and apologized for that stewardship in the last century. I have been in this job 7.5 years or so, and certainly since 2000, I think the university really took its responsibilities very seriously in response to that pretty devastating 1998 audit, setting up the Rangers program, establishing the Office of Mauna Kea Management. 2009, we adopted a comprehensive management plan to talk about how to implement the 2000 master plan. And then most recently, we did implement the administrative rules. That's just one of the many things we're doing. So the administrative rules really lay out how some of the legal authority that we have to take steps on Mauna Kea. So we're looking at using those so we can manage access. I'm told that when snow fell last week, thousands of people went up there. So the rules will give us the tools to limit access. They'll give us the tools we need to better manage the commercial tour operators. And they will give us the ability to perhaps have our Mauna Kea Rangers have some enforcement authority, which they do not have today. But in addition to that, as you said, independent of the rules, we are working on decommissioning. So we made a commitment to decommission 5 telescopes. That was one of the conditions of the TMT Conservation District Use Permit. 2 of those decommissionings are underway right now. What most people don't realize is the process of decommissioning is almost as complicated as building a new telescope. We have to develop a plan. The plan has to be approved. We have to do environmental assessments. Then we need permits, and then we can actually start taking a telescope down. But that process involves getting approval of what site restoration looks like, with the idea of restoring each site to, as much as possible, what it was before the telescope was put up.
So what I'm hearing then is that even as we go through this process in the House, and we're going to do that with due diligence, which is to form a working group and make some recommendations and look at the management. But all of these things are still happening on Mauna Kea as well, as you
that's
said.
exactly right. At the same time, we're also updating the master plan, which is from 2000, or actually we're doing a new master plan, incorporating what we learned today. And we have a very intensive community outreach program, and that will continue. We're updating the comprehensive management plan. That describes how we manage the environmental resources, cultural resources, the archaeological monitoring, how we manage public access, and what does a decommissioning process look like. That's all underway, and that all becomes part of our process of going through a new EIS process for a new lease. It's always possible to pull the plug, but it is not possible to complete in a timely manner if we stop right now.
So for our viewers out there, just so that we get a sense of the date and the timeline, the master lease is set to expire in 2033.
Correct.
So these things are ongoing, and I think the common ground we can find is that everyone views Mauna Kea as a special sacred place, and we want to ensure that there's community engagement around that, and that these conversations and the work that can be done in parallel.
Well, I think the real challenge is that Mauna Kea means so many things to so many people. So for many Hawaiians, it's it is a sacred place for cultural practice. As we learned last week, the Hawaii Island community sees it as a place of recreation. Hunters see it as a place of sustenance. It has an amazing environmental characteristics that are studied and people want to understand and preserve. It's the site of, we're monitoring annually, over 100 archaeological sites that we track. We're thrilled when the Vecu bug was taken off of the endangered species list. And of course, it is the best site for astronomical observing in the Northern Hemisphere. And everybody sees a part of it. One thing I'll agree with the speaker is that when something like this is siloed and people see only their own view, this is when we have challenges. And I think the university is committed to really taking a holistic view that incorporates all these viewpoints.
Well, I don't think we're going to resolve any of the issues here in this 8-minute segment, but I do appreciate the conversation we're having, President Lassner.